Video number 13, we're talking about the Sea-Doo 787 motor. Still, that was typically made from 1996 to about 2003. This was their most reliable motor. We're going to talk about the bottom end bearings and seals, what goes, and typically what doesn't go. It's like clockwork. Typically, I can pretty much predict what's going to go wrong, and I'll tell you what is gone most of the time and what is not. The motors typically sit back on an angle. They also sit to the side. And I'm telling you about it goes to the side. This will be for a later video about the cylinders and what goes wrong in the winterization. But this angle, bottom line, is the water, if it does get in the engine, which it does every time, even if your gaskets are mint, we're going to talk about that later, how the water gets in the motor. The water will go back and typically rust out these bearings, these three. So many times these will be in mint condition except these three bearings. Many times you can change these bearings and make your motor go for hundreds of more hours. This is the most reliable motor they ever made by far. Very rarely do the rods go. Very rarely. The only time the rods go is if you get water in them and they get some rust and you start them up and they grind up. But they typically last for 1,000 hours easily, and very few people will ever hit that on the Sea-Doo. So if you don't get water in the rods, they typically will last a lifetime. And if a rod does go, it's almost always the back rod where the water sits, of course. And you get more flexing and it lives a little harder life. However, so that will go. We talked about this. Now, the middle bearings right here, these middle bearings rarely wear, even if there's water in them, okay, because the water can't get in there. And they also usually have a little oil seeping through the seals to lubricate them. Very rarely these bearings go on. So you don't have to split your crank to fix these bearings. Many times you can fix the end bearings and the thing is mint. So this is the biggest myth in the business, is that these seals wear out and the oil goes out of this chamber into the cylinders, which causes hydrolocking, non-starting, tremendous smoke. That is not the case. These seals never wear. Never, ever, ever, unless you had a gear blow up and it chewed them up. That's different. That's not wear. That's an explosion. So what really happens is that the seals shrink slightly and the oil leaks between the seal and the case. So how do you fix that? You have to use a high-quality Powersports sealer and seal these bearings on the lip in the cases, and we'll fix it permanently. Do not use RTV silicone. Silicone is terrible stuff for two-strokes. It's not gas-proof. It shrivels up like a worm, and two-strokes have a lot of gas flowing through everywhere because that's the nature of a two-stroke. You got gas everywhere. Do not use silicone. Now, these front bearings, sometimes these will rust, rarely too. Sometimes your starter is either leaking the water or the electrical plug up here in the front cover will leak, or somebody forgot the O-ring on the oil pump, which is very common. You'll see the water leak in. And this is a sealed bearing here. This is grease filled. Do not clean that. You can inject some grease in there. They're always perfect almost every single time. Now, as for the balance shaft seals, these seals, this seal is very common. I'd say 70% of the motors I take apart, this seal has pushed out and it spins here and it's all chewed up and it's worn on an angle. You have to change these seals. And to fix this problem, the factory should have used a Powersport sealer to seal these seals to the case, just like these bearings. That will solve your problem. So you're going to put sealer on here, spin them, make sure they're tucked in, and make sure they're pushed back to this lip. Very important. And that will never come out and cause a problem again. Those are your key things. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is how do you balance this balance shaft? Some of these aftermarket things, they don't have the right mark. People are paranoid. Is it the right mark? I don't know if I did it right. Sometimes the mark's worn. It's very simple. Your crankshaft has a half moon on the top and a half moon on the bottom. As you see this half moon, you put the half moon down, and the half moon on here is the same as this half moon. This half moon is on the top. This half moon is on the top. That's how you do it. So you make sure your crank is perfect. The half moon is up. You can see this is perfect. Half moon is down, down. And that's how you do your balance shaft, and you don't have to go looking for marks and being all paranoid if you got it right. So this is the bottom end of a Sea-Doo 787 or 800 in a nutshell for mechanics. Thank you.